Man, I know. I'm glad you guys are inspired and on fire tonight.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. Um, man, we had life group last night and I was struggling. I don't know why, man. I didn't have my stuff together. Um, I had great interaction. People got really enthused and man, it's just sometimes at the end of those deals, I'm just amazed at, what all gets talked about and how inspiring it is.
Yeah.
And I realize, this once again, this isn't me because it really takes everybody to make this work.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that in a situation like that, our, um, our own feelings about the fact that we're maybe not as prepared as we wish we were, they make things worse than us actually not being prepared, you know?
Yeah, really? Is that how that works?
I think we kind of sabotage ourselves a little bit sometimes. I think so. Because what you just said is it went great.
So maybe those feelings set him up for success. Maybe sometimes I think that's the biggest sabotage is when we think we got it all figured out. And
Yeah,
then,
for
I
sure.
don't know. That just depends on the situation and the circumstances because kind of want you kind of need some confidence on certain situations. But when you're actually trying to engage people and interact with people, if you come across with so much confidence and like you got this all together, then you really shut down conversation. I think you actually sometimes when you do have it really together, you got to lead in with a lot of questions just to disarm people so that they don't just shut down. You know, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to where it's not a sermon.
Yeah, a lecture. Who likes a lecture? You know.
Yeah.
So.
I know y'all two guys don't. You want to have time to talk.
Oh shoot.
Now we'll let you give us a lecture, Kent. Start us off with a lecture, and then we'll jump in with some thoughts and
Well,
critique the
we'll
lecture.
have questions at the Q&A
Yeah,
toward the end.
that's right. That's right.
I'll give you about 2 minutes.
We'll provide
Not
the Q, and you can provide the A, Kent.
there you
So,
go.
uh,
I've always been an answer waiting on a question.
I know. So,
Um, so I asked, I made a statement to one of my guys at work here. Um, I said and he didn't agree with me, but I still kind of believe this. I think it's harder to ask a good question than come up with a good answer.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
100% agree. Yeah.
It's the question. You gotta figure out what question to ask. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think that in any way says that good answers aren't valuable. I think they're I mean, we all want answers, right? But you don't always um I don't know, answers sometimes are hard to answers are hard to agree on, but man, asking a good question is really, really hard. You have to, I don't know, what does it take to ask a good question? I've wondered about that.
Well, one thing, I think that if you can ask a good question in the right way, it provokes discussion rather than just immediate answers that may not have thought behind them like it does if you ask the a good question in the right way to where people start actually talking about it and you hear a bunch of different perspectives. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree because we all live inside of our own confirmation bias, and it's so helpful to bust out of that and hear a lot of different answers to a good question. But you ask what did you ask it? You had a question there. What makes a good or what I think in answer to your question, I can't remember how you framed the question, but here's what I thought when you said that is partially, I think part of the answer is not having such a strong opinion yourself.
Yeah.
If I'm so opinionated and if I have such a I know the answer to this, how are you gonna ask a good question? you need to have a little bit of, you need to allow that question to sit with yourself a moment before you know what I mean? I think those are the better questions, is not somebody that already knows the answer and they're just asking it, just for the sake of,
Rhetorical question.
yeah, rhetorical questions. But
Yep.
you actually want to know what someone else is going to say. I actually want your opinion on something. So I'm going to ask a question that reflects that versus I'm just looking for you to confirm my bias.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to add to that, or see if you think this has any value. So I think in some contexts that is probably the thing we need to watch. In another, well, it's part of this comes from a little experience I had with we had a group of guys come in, well, my networking group, BNI networking, actually Ron's group, several from there came down and toured both of our shops. And had a really good time walking around the shop, talking about what we do. And I was I was really impressed by the questions they asked. Like, they were good questions, and they were questions that meant something to me. They weren't just you know, how do you turn a board into flooring? It was who's who who are the like who are the people who are your best customers? Who do you like to, like, when you think about who you want to meet, who you want, just, and some specific questions, but you could tell that these guys were interested in my business and what I was doing here
Mm-hmm.
enough to where they could ask questions that had some value to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other thing is you were talking to people who were also in business, so they had a basic understanding of what you were dealing with, probably.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. I just am thinking here that part of asking a good question is being interested in the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually caring. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that.
And I think it can kind of go along with the opinionated thing. If I, and I know this spot really well, both of y'all know that, but if I'm super opinionated and I'm not just all that interested in other people's challenges, I'm going to have a terrible hard time asking a good question.
Yeah, really caring.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably have been thinking of this because, man, this is something that's really challenging me right now, I guess, is I go to some of these events and I hear some of the questions people ask, and I'm like, man, that's
Mm-hmm.
good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that takes an expanded worldview,
Yeah,
outside of just my own world and my own selfish interests. Actually,
Hmm.
to care enough about what else is going on in the world.
and I think that we have to learn how to think sometimes. That doesn't come built in. And just like the fact that you're noticing that they're asking good questions and you're admiring that, it's going to provoke something in you that's you're going to learn how to think better as well.
Yeah, I think so. You kind of hope it goes that
Yeah.
direction, right?
Yeah, we can always hope.
But let's take this another direction. So you've kind of framed the whole asking questions around business and your experience that you just recently had. But how does this work when you're talking to people of other faith, of people with other religious beliefs? Um, we're running into some conversations now with people that are, differing mindsets, um, Mormons in particularly, and, Catholics and some other different, faith communities. How can I be genuinely interested in their faith walk while I don't agree with them, but actually ask good questions about, maybe, because here's one thing that you hope that a good question does, and that it plants seeds and gets people to actually question something, right? A good question should make that person question, right? And so I think, like, I love it when I'm challenged like that. I love it when you guys or whoever ask me a question and I'm like, I need to think about that. What do I believe? What is my opinion or what is my, you know, I've been talking to a few people over this last weekend about what's going on in Iran, and I had a guy ask me what my thoughts was, and I told him, I said, "This is really hard for me to, have an opinion on it because I don't feel like I have enough information. I think I'd be a fool to, get all opinionated about something I have so little information. So I'd like to know a little more about it before I start trying to form opinions on it."
Mhm.
But just asking a few other people some questions about what their thoughts are on it and just, hearing the different quick answers that people give, it's very interesting. I think I'd I'd that's one thing I've been very challenged by is trying to learn how to ask more questions instead of giving my opinion all the time, you
Mhm.
know? But in particularly in relations to other people's faith, how does that how does it look for you guys?
So, I think maybe I told y'all about this, I'm not sure, but how 6 months ago, whenever it was, when I went on that, youth fall camp,
Mhm.
we had a young man show up there that doesn't go to our church or our youth group, and he is Catholic, and I'm not even for sure why he was there. He knew he was coming to a Protestant camp, and I think maybe he knew a couple of the boys or something, but anyway, he ended up there somehow. He's Catholic, and so I think it was the last day after I'd gotten to know him a little bit, he and I started talking about his faith, and I really enjoyed the conversation because he was really authentic and sincere about what he believed. He was 16, but he knew a lot for being 16. Now he couldn't give me, all the answers necessarily, but we had some good talks, and it really impressed me that he was able to listen to my questions that I had about his faith, and he gave me some answers, and some questions I had, he told me he'd have to get back with me on it. And then he could ask genuine, authentic questions. And I think it was one of the first times that I felt like that I had a really profitable conversation. Now, I didn't convert him to being a Protestant, and I'm still not a Catholic. But we had a really great conversation, and I think it was because we were both honest about what we believed, and we knew we didn't agree on things, certain things, but we could talk about them, and that was really cool to do that. And so I think that being able to be honest and open about what you believe without being confrontational is so very valuable when you're
Mhm.
discussing something with somebody that is of another faith. And there's another thing, and I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around this, but man, there's a word in psychology, and I can't remember what it is now, but it describes the concept that every person has that their life is just as vibrant and authentic and real to them as yours is to you. Sometimes we can think that people should think the way we think, and that my experiences are more real, and they are to me. But that boy's faith that I was talking to, I realized it was deep to him. Like he had he had brought his father to the Catholic faith and baptized.
Wow,
I
wow.
mean, this boy was serious about his Catholic faith. And I don't know where he's at. I mean, he believed in Jesus, and I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to him since, but all of a sudden in our conversation, I was like, this dude's for real.
Yeah.
His faith, and I enjoyed that conversation. I don't know. I'm not really answering your question, Alex, but it was a good conversation.
Well, I think so many times we listen to fix people. I know in marriage, that's oftentimes, kind of you listen to give the answer or to fix somebody. And even when it comes to people of other, denominations or faith, um, I think it's especially that way, even within the Christian community. I I love what I think Jamie Winship or somebody gave this illustration of snatching the neighbor's kids from their backyard and bringing them over the fence
Mm.
and making them our kids or something like that. I mean, you know, um, we want everybody to look like us and think like us and agree with us, and so
Mm.
we're listening to try to figure out how we can, make that happen. I do. I'll be honest enough to just tell you that. I really like it when people agree with me, especially when it comes to my faith.
Yeah.
Um, and I was at a men's retreat last weekend, and we were talking, and you know, the man sitting right next to me that I go to church with quickly let me know, like, that he was not a Calvinist. Like, quickly let me know, like, in our conversation early on. And I'm like, well, I'm glad that, that's not what we are basing our, fellowship on and our friendship and is you haven't agreed with me on everything. But I think that if he would listen carefully to me and my heart and my experience, and if I would listen and ask questions, we'd find out why we both ended up where we are
Mhm.
and probably respect each other deeply at the end of that conversation for that. You know what I mean? So I think it's asking good questions is also how you really build trust and respect with other people too, and showing that you actually care about, like you said, that very real, colorful life journey that they've had and
Mhm.
experienced up to this point. So
Yeah.
I gotta say
So I
something. Go ahead, Ken. I was gonna. I thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with your brother, um,
Craig?
Craig,
Oh yeah.
and Betty came over, and we had such a great time, for a day or so, that we spent together, and just the questions and the conversations that we had back and forth, and the respect that, you know, even
Yeah.
we don't go to the same church, but just the questions and conversation and the respect that we could have, and the time that we, putting friendship above that others, it's
Money.
just such a wonderful time, man. Just really enjoyed that. So
That's awesome. So we all are challenged with different denominations around us. Like there's a lot of them that, we agree on the essentials
Mm.
and we
hmm
can sit down and visit with them. I can think of a lot of people from a lot of different churches that I can sit down and visit with heart to heart. And, there's not going to be anything major that we're going to disagree about. um, but yeah, you mentioned a couple of religions, and then we all get to deal with the conservative, like I don't want to get too specific here, but um, I think it's all the same. The challenges, you know, um, and for me, I think it's realizing who actually changes hearts.
hmm
Um, I think all of us men are fixers, right? We want if we see something that ain't right, it's a hammer looking for a nail. Um,
Yep.
but in this instance, we're actually not the solution. We know about the solution, I guess I'd like to say.
Right.
We feel like we know what the solution is, but the solution is a person. It's not a practice or a yeah, it's not. I think realizing that helps me some to ask questions and to not just come at them with you know it can so easily turn into this. Well, this is how I believe about that, and this is how I believe about. You're just sitting there like it's really hard to get anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. What you just said there, Kent, that we are not the solution. That's kind of a hard thing to hear. I mean, I'm only half joking because what you said is true. We men we like to be the solution or have the solution. We fix the thing, whatever the thing is, we fix that thing.
Yeah.
And so to enter into something and just realize that I'm not even close to being the solution here. The solution is Jesus completely.
Mm-hmm.
You said something, man. Man, that's a golden statement, man. The solution is a person and not a practice. I love that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna write
Amen.
that in my notebook. That's a good one. It's a good
Since
one-liner.
it's interesting you say that, Kent. When you and I were in Dallas together, you told me about, what's the guy's name? Prather? Chad
Oh,
Prather.
Chad Prather.
Chad Prather. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he started coming up in my Instagram feed, and I was listening to him. He went off on a rant. It's probably an old one, but he was talking about that, about how we can't think our way we can't think our way through our problems. We can't think our way to peace, because if it was possible to do that, obviously we would have, because that's what we try to do
Yeah.
all the time. But he said this: the only solution to peace, the only way to peace, is a person, just like what you.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that is awesome.
So now I got to hear
Love it,
this
man.
today.
It changes how you see. I mean, you have to be there yourself first.
Yeah.
Like you really have to believe that at a core level that the solution is a person, and that person's name is Jesus.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if we believe that,
The
and
better.
if we're gonna talk about prayer a little bit, and we believe that the solution is a person, and we believe that God is sovereign, um, and we're gonna pray and talk to this person who is the solution. How does that all work out? Because sometimes I talk to that person and I'm looking for solutions and I'm willing for the practice if that's what he tells me. And sometimes feel like I'm left at sea trying to figure out what is that something that he constantly is trying to strip us of? Is like man's default is looking for a practice and he is constantly having to try to strip us back to no, it's not a practice, it's me. It's a person. Like I'd like to hang out here for a minute and talk about this
Hmm.
because I feel like this is a constant struggle that I have. Is I'm always looking for something to do, something to like just give me a path, give me a practice, give me something, and I'm you know I'll I'll lead the charge, but when it's just a person and then it's a person that I can't see, some days I can't even feel them. Um, man, that's tough. My flesh doesn't love that at all. Takes a lot of faith.
I think one of the big challenges with that, Alex, is that the reality is Christian life is a lot of things that we do. Like, I mean, if we want to know more about God, we have to read His Word.
Mhm.
If we want to be challenged, if we want to grow as a person and be challenged and understand, we've got to get around His people.
Mhm.
And all that is real and true, and it's absolutely needed for a Christian. So how do and then you go into your life. Everything in your life is transactional. Um, if you don't go to work, nothing's going to happen.
That's the truth. Yeah. So what are you saying? You're saying that we're so accustomed to the transactional nature of things that we just automatically apply that to our relationship with God? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I know I do. Yeah.
Okay, but there is a certain transactional nature to it, right? Because not with salvation. I want to make a difference here. But let me tell you something that happened just this evening. So my little boy Anderson, he got this 3D printer from a house that his brother owns. It was sitting out there in the shop, and we saw it out there. The renters had moved out, and we saw it out there. And I told him he had to talk to Luke before he could take it home. So Luke lets him bring it home. So Anderson brings home this 3D printer, and it needed a power cord. And so I ordered a power cord for it, and we got the power cord. And I told him, I said, before you plug this thing in and turn it on, I said, you have to have an adult. Either Luke or I has to be here, because it looks like somebody built this 3D printer maybe. And I didn't know if there were open electrical connections. Like, I didn't want him plugging it in and getting shocked. So this evening, Well, today during the day, he came in and came to where I was working, close to the house there, and he said, "Could we go look at the 3D printer?" And I told him, I said, "Well, we'll do that. We'll do that right after work." And so I came home from work a little bit early, but he wasn't anywhere around. And so we didn't do what I told him we were going to do because he wasn't around to do it. So I went and took my shower and came out here and started talking to y'all fellas. So you think about God. I mean, sometimes, like my little boy didn't show up to do the thing that he really wanted to do because he was off carousing around with his friends is what he was doing. And so we didn't get to do what he wanted to do because he didn't show up. And if I don't show up, if God tells me we can do something, to use this example, and then I don't show up, it ain't happening, is it? I mean, we have to show up, right? Or not?
Man, and if he wouldn't have asked you, you wouldn't have committed to, you know, that either. So I think there is a aspect of showing up, of asking, um, of knocking,
Right.
and then I think one of the hardest parts is actually receiving. When he does show up, then we actually have to receive it too. I think
Right.
receiving's hard, but Frank, you're exactly right. I think that's the paradox is that salvation, there's nothing, the only thing that I contributed to my salvation was my sin. And salvation's not this transactional thing that if you do this, then God's going to do this and back and forth. And,
Right.
you cry out and ask him, he freely gives the gift of salvation. But then I think the relationship that develops after that, I think is 100% transactional. But yet that transaction is a different kind of transaction than most transactions we're familiar with here on Earth, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, I'm not sure it's 100% transactional. I'd have to think about that. But it seems quite clear to me that us putting effort into our Christian life and pursuing Christ as he pursues us and reading the Bible and doing all the things, that it does make a difference. And we benefit from all of that. I'm convinced of that.
So, this is making me think of our discussion we had last night. We were going through Galatians 3:6 through 9, and so that if you're in that spot, that takes you back to Genesis, to Abraham, and Paul uses. So he's already he's let the Galatians have it so far, like called them basically foolish idiots that have,
Mm-hmm.
they knew the truth and they just went and did something stupid. And then he goes into the Old Testament, which is what they're using to justify their religion.
Right.
And he's going into the Old Testament and proving to them the gospel, like showing the gospel that was preached in back in that day. So it's really interesting conversation, but around again, like multiple times in Genesis, it is so clear God told him that he was going to make of him a great nation and that all people are going to be blessed through you. He started before Abram was even, like, he called him out of Tehran. No, that might have been his dad. I'm not sure on the names. They were idol worshipers. This wasn't some righteous guy that God said, man, here's a good man, I'm going to use him. He actually was an idol worshiper, more than likely. And yeah, I mean, Abraham did some good things. He did what he was told, like with taking Isaac up on the mountain. But Abraham, he, like Pastor Brian says, he loved him some Abraham. and he wasn't against even throwing Sarah under the bus there, kind of.
Yeah, when they were wondering
To
if it
the
was his wife.
yeah. Yeah, so this wasn't a perfect guy. Realizing that any righteousness that I have is from God. That the reason that I want to get to know God is because He's drawing me. Um, that my desire to get to know Him comes from Him. Um, that all I have is a response, right? And even that response is not what saves me. It's just a response because God did what He did. All right. Yeah. How do y'all put that together?
Okay, so you're saying that even your response is motivated by God? Is that what you just said?
So, whenever things have gotten real, like when I know God is in the room
Yeah.
and He is asking something of me, there's only one option. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I had okay, Alan Wright. You remember
Yes.
his
Yes.
experience?
My mind was just going back there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. This is so interesting. Tell that story so Alex can know.
Yeah. So I don't guess we told it on the last one. I don't remember telling it.
I don't think so.
Anyway, so Alan Wright is, this writer of many books and a preacher, and
Mhm.
he's a very talented person. Did you meet? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I've
Did you
met
meet
him.
him there? You did.
Yeah, I've met him.
So he talked about he was Frank. You correct me if I get this wrong, but he was in college, I think, and I'm not sure what he was studying, but in my mind, I thought he was studying to be a professor or a teacher or something. I'm not sure. But he knew this. He did not want to be a preacher. Like, I remember that part. He was convinced. And one night he said he was praying one evening there in his dorm room. And he said it wasn't anything spectacular as far as his prayer. He wasn't fasting, or he just was praying that evening. And God was there, like in a really, he knew it. And he said the way I remember, at some point in there, anyways, God said, "You know that you're going to preach for me, right?" And Alan said, "Yes, that's right." Like he
Yeah.
said, there was nothing else to say.
He
He
wasn't
didn't
arguing with
want to
God
say anything
wasn't
else.
on the
No,
books right then.
no, you don't. You just
Yeah,
don't argue.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Then
That's good.
was it Alan Wright or was it somebody? No, I think it was somebody else throughout the conference there that they talked about that. They asked the question, could have Paul, when he was struck down on the road to Damascus, just said, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." And they talked about several different people throughout the Bible when God showed up, like really showed up. I mean, maybe they could have said, "No, I'm not interested," but probably not. I mean, when God shows up, things happen.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I
And
agree. I mean, that's my testimony too.
well, that's yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking about. It seems like I do not understand this, but it seems like God shows up for people occasionally and delivers them from situations that they don't even know they need delivering from.
Mhm.
I mean, you
yeah,
think about y'all's journey, and one of these days you're going to tell it, but you were delivered from something, and at one point back there, you would have never thought you needed to be delivered. You thought you had it all
yeah,
figured out.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, God's like, "No, I'm gonna pluck you out of there."
yeah, that's amazing. It's supernatural, man.
Yeah,
Really is.
yeah, it is.
And I think too, um, you know, Ken, what you said about our response. I know, like most of the times in my life where I'm feeling really desperate for God, and I have come face to face with my own sin and my own shortcoming, um, oftentimes I just pray and tell God, like, I don't even want to do this, and if anything's going to happen, if I'm supposed to forgive this person, this is going to take you doing something supernatural in me that I can't do of myself.
Yep.
And God, I believe, has always honored that request. When I tell him and I'm honest with him that I can't do it, and I'm totally relying on him to do something in me that I can't do myself, I can't think of a time when God hasn't honored that. And it's maybe not in that exact moment, but a day or 2 later, I'm like, "Man, how could I even have had that conversation?" Or whatever. It just seems like God oftentimes. So I think there it is a response. I mean, the word says that no man comes to the Father except the Father calls him or draws him, right? And so we're not, you know, making good choices that God is then, through a transaction obligated to honor. He is I do think that I think our worship, I think the more I think about it, I think every single part of that transaction initiated by God, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. You know, Alex, you helped me out a good little bit because so for a number of years, Kent has been working on me about this dead man thing. You know, what dead men can't do anything. And so
Mhm.
I'd kind of got that through my head a little bit. And I had this mental image, of the dead man. He's just laid out dead. And then, Christ comes on the scene and Christ does the work and saves our soul. And that's a good thing. But then you took it one step further when you went to talking that one time, that one episode, you went to talking about being down under the water on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, no bubbles. Yeah.
No bubbles. And that took
Yeah.
it to a whole new level for me. I'm like, "Oh, I like that a lot," because
Mhm.
that's, like, for sure dead. Like, when you're laid out on the ground, maybe he's breathing a little. You get
Kick
that
him, he
shallow.
might will jiggle and move
Yeah,
a little.
exactly. But when he's on the bottom of the ocean, no
Yeah,
bubbles. No
no
bubbles at
bubbles.
all. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's funny.
"That's pretty good stuff." So,
Yeah.
um, we've talked about prayer for 2 or 3 episodes now a little bit, and I'm really interested in this, I don't even know what to call it, this thing where God said he was gonna do something and then people prayed and he did something different. What is up with that? I mean, it happened a number of times. So, um, you know, well, Jonah, that's a very obvious one. God told Jonah he was gonna destroy the city, and Jonah said, "No, well, I ain't gonna go preach to them because I hate their guts." And then God kind of persuaded him a little bit there, and then he went and preached to them, and then of course they repented, and then Jonah was all mad. And so I don't know what was up with that. And you got Moses, where God told Moses, he said, I'm gonna just kill all those people, all those Israelites. He said, I don't like them. I'm gonna slay them all. And Moses had a visit with him, and God's like, all right, whatever, I'll leave them alone for a minute. And there's one thing after the next like that where like King Hezekiah, God told him he's gonna die. And Hezekiah went to praying and whatnot, and God said, all right, I'll give you 15 more years. So what's up with that? Tell me.
He tells them in the Old Testament, he says that if my people will humble themselves and if they'll pray,
Yep.
I'll hear from heaven and heal their land.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I don't think we're changing God's mind, but there is, man, that's crazy though. You brought out like the two opposite illustrations of Jonah and Moses. uh, Jonah's like the hard cold killer. He wants to
Oh,
see them
yeah.
all dead,
He's like,
and
"Go for it,
Moses is
God.
like,
Kill him, kill
"God,
him."
kill me, yeah, kill me for your own, honor, glory's sake, and spare your people." I'm like, Moses, I'm afraid I would have taken the path of Jonah.
Man, I know. Moses, that's a hard one for me to wrap my brain around.
To know, yeah, I mean, it had to listen. And Moses, you can't tell me Moses loved the people. They were nasty
And
to
he had to be
Moses.
frustrated with them.
Rebelled against him? Yeah, I mean, so it had to be something. Moses had to have a view of God that, because he said so the nations don't, speak evil of
Right.
of the Israelites' God, or and so it was Moses was seeking God's honor or his glory, and man, I don't know. Yeah, Jonah was definitely not seeking God's glory. He was spiteful. That's a whole nother level of racism or whatever it
Yeah.
is to just
So
uh,
I have a question. What what was God's motive for telling Moses that he was going to destroy Israel, or for telling Jonah to go to Nineveh?
That's a good question.
his motive is his own glory.
Right. But you know what? Now that you're asking that question, I don't know if this is right or not, but maybe Moses didn't know how much he loved those people until God told him he was going to destroy them. That's an interesting thought, Kent, because maybe Moses needed that experience to get through the next however many years that he was going to spend dealing with those people.
So you're saying that was God's way of manipulating Moses into actually caring for the people, Frank?
Well, it could sound that's what I'm saying. I don't like the way you put it.
Moses needed some help, so God's like, "Let me see
Yeah,
if you're gonna
I'm gonna
be a
do it
good
like
leader
this.
here."
I don't know. I just have such a hard time working my way through that because it appears like God said, I am doing this thing. And then Moses said, would you please not and kill me instead? And then God said, well, okay, then I won't. And man, I don't know. You know how my brain works, both of you. It's pretty black and white up in there. It's like on or off, yes or no, ones and zeros. And so those kind of situations really trip me up, just to be honest with you.
No, I get it. I just so one thing I do believe is that God has a plan,
Yeah,
and that he's known what that plan was. He says since before the foundations of the world.
right.
So I don't think he's in question about what's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either.
So if he says something like this, why does he do that?
I don't know.
I guess that's the question in my mind. Why I I don't know. Like did he choose to use Jonah to preach the gospel to these people? And this was the way he decided to do it. Just tell them, look, I'm going to destroy these people. And the truth is, if these people had not repented, he would have, right?
Well,
But
he ended up destroying them down the road, right?
he knew that they were going to repent. He had to know they were going to repent,
Yeah.
but he could still be true in saying that he's going to destroy them if they don't repent.
You know
Yeah.
what is the most fascinating thing about Jonah's story is that God chose to still use Jonah after he said no. Because we all know if God's purposes was to save Nineveh, God would have raised up another preacher to go and preach
Yeah.
that message, right? So I don't think me or you have the power to thwart God's sovereign will or plans,
Nope.
right? So the question
Coulda
is
tried.
you ask what his purpose is. That's a good question because, like, I just I feel like it is not something to be taken lightly when God speaks to us. We want to be involved in his purposes, right?
Mm.
We want to be obedient and faithful in his purposes. And if we start pulling off tricks like Jonah, like God had mercy on him and, you know, sent a well. But was that whole thing dependent on Jonah's preaching? I don't think so.
Man, that question you asked back there, Kent, that really is getting to me because you asked what his purpose was, and what if what if that whole experience was just for Jonah? I'd never thought of that before ever. And what you just said, Alex, Well, it goes back to what I said before. When God comes on the scene, God God told Jonah, that he should go preach over there, and he tried his very hardest not to. He really did, and
Mhm.
that kinda flies in the face of the argument of free will, because he went and preached over there. It strikes me funny. So, yeah, when God tells you to do something, you ought to just go do it happily.
Yeah, you definitely should.
So God
But
doesn't have to get a big old fish involved.
I don't wanna I wanna keep asking. I'd love to, like, take the first part of the conversation and be, obedient to asking good questions here, and Kent asked a really good question, and I hate to just give the answer. I hate to act like I have the answer, but I think I have the answer to that question. God's purpose is His own glory, right? Isn't that the purpose? Like, think of the glory that He's received through both of those accounts. Like, and also, doesn't it reveal His nature too? That He is, because there's Paul talks about it, and I think even Jesus talks about it. Like when he's talking about the nature of God, that He is a, He is a just and a forgiving and a loving, merciful God, right? And so I think both of those accounts demonstrate God's character,
Yeah.
which ultimately glorifies Him, right, Himself, right, in the demonstration of His character. So I don't think that those were events that He put there to try to trip us up, to get us questioning whether or not God is faithful to His word, His own word, or something like that. I think there is a much greater purpose in it than just to try to make our, you know, black and white brains spin off of the rails.
He's talking about me there, Kent. Um,
No, no, I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about myself as well.
yeah.
Frank, I agree with you. Those are things that I wrestle with. There seems to be a lot of, and listen, and that's not the only thing. There's a lot of seemingly contradictions in God's word, and the only way that I get through it is by realizing that I by faith believe it, even if I don't understand it. I
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah, I've got to that point too where there have been times in the past where it genuinely bothered me that I couldn't come up with an explanation because
Hmm.
okay, there in the past I have wanted to be able to give a good explanation to all the contradictions when
Hmm.
people who are questioning the Bible or questioning God when they ask. I would like to be able to have all the answers. Well, that's just that's ridiculous. And now I'm to this point where I can look at the story like of Moses and say, well, God did say he was going to destroy him. He did say that. Moses did, you know, have his conversation with God, and then God did not destroy them. Or we could say he changed his mind, whatever. I can look at all those things. I can see the contradictions, but it doesn't bother me. It it's it's a thing I like to think about, but it doesn't bother me because I'm slowly getting to the point where I'm understanding this about God, that he and his ways don't fit into my boxes.
Amen. It's and can I dare say this is because you're understanding what Kent said earlier, that the solution is a person and not a practice, not a formula, not a doctrine even. It's a
Yep.
person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. But man, when you're trying to get God to fit in your boxes, it doesn't work. You just have constant frustration and questions, and things don't match up, and nothing makes sense. And you can't try to put God in your boxes. Just it don't work at
Yeah.
all.
It works for a certain amount of time until you start reading a little bit of a little
Yeah.
more in God's word, and then He busts out of this box, and then He'll bust out of that box,
Yep.
and how about let's just not try to put Him in a box,
That's right.
you know?
We
You know what's really cool? Uh, God made you that way.
That's true.
Sometimes I think about that. Like we sit here with all our hangups. It's all right. He actually made us with those hangups, and working through those things and learning learning who God is so freeing. Like by the time we got through that passage last night, I was enthused. Like it was like a new picture again of Jesus, and the fact that way back in the Old Testament, God was working with Abraham through the gospel. Like Abraham was counted righteous because he believed that the answer was going to come through his family.
A long,
It
long
wasn't,
time in the future.
yeah, like, and this was centuries before the law. This is before any
Right,
kind of, the law hadn't come. These guys were winging it.
man, and the story of Abraham is
Just winging it.
so amazing too. How like God caused Abram to fall into a deep sleep, and the covenant that He has with Abram isn't a transactional covenant with Abram, where Abram is making a covenant with God.
Yeah,
God made the
right.
covenant with Abram, you know. So
hmm
that's pretty
Abraham didn't walk between those two halves.
exactly. I'm so
hmm
glad he didn't. Otherwise, have to s- we'd all be Zionists today if he did. So super.
There he went and said it.
uh,
Um,
Oh yeah.
so
I'll say it.
I was looking at different. I think part of the struggle we have is the fact that we still want to have a little control. It can be really, really hard to let that go. Psalm with 115, 3. It's a really short verse. Our God is in the heavens. He does all that he pleases.
Hmm.
Pretty simple. Like, do you believe that? Um, how does that, when you believe that, how does that change how you pray? I think that's a question in my mind, anyways. That's one thing I like about praying the Bible, praying Psalms or something like that. You know, and I'm not saying anything against praying for the things that we're concerned about here and asking God for help with things. I'm not at all saying that's not valid. But praying scripture, praying Psalms, you are, when you pray the Bible, you're completely aligned with what Jesus is wanting.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
So pray like it's all up to God, work like it's all up to you. That's a saying. I know we've talked about that before. That's a that's actually a PVD quote.
Is
Um
that a good quote?
I think it's a good quote. But I think that you have to understand where this is coming from. Why are you working? Um, for me, realizing that my solution is a person and that my path to more freedom in my Christian life is to get to know that person better. And because I want to get to know this person better, I I seek him out. I seek him out through the Bible, through having a mentor that, keeps me better aligned. Just see, I seek him out. That's what I believe is the path. I'm not saying I do that great at it all the time,
Hmm.
but
See, where I get hung up a little bit is I'm I'm afraid if I pray like it's all up to God and work like it's all up to me, I'll start believing those works might mean something. Um, I think it's a good quote, and I think we should do that. But you just can't let the fact that you're working like it's all up to you. You can't ever start believing that it's all up to you, because we've all been there.
yeah, maybe it's not a great quote. I don't know. I think part of the reason I connect with it is because I did go in the ditch of nothing really mattered for a while.
Yeah, and that's not a good ditch to be in either. Because
Yeah.
it's doomed.
Not that I was, I felt like it was okay to sin, But I wasn't worried about any structure whatsoever
Yeah.
in my Christian life.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know where to put that.
Well, I got an idea. Give us enough time, and Kent will come up with a better quote. So we won't make judgment on that quote whether that's a good one or not. We're gonna just give that one some time to
We'll,
sit, soak, and
we'll
sour, and
we'll
let's
let it
see.
marinate a little bit.
Yeah, let's see where that goes. He might come up with a better one here. So
Uh, between the three of us, we should be able to
we're
do
not
something
gonna we're
better than
not gonna we're not gonna give a full endorsement on that quote yet. So, but
yeah.
Yep.
anyways, guys, I just believe that prayer is one of the most powerful tools a Christian has, and one of the least used, but one of the most underutilized tools that we have as we walk through this life where we really are in a spiritual war. I think just really we so desperately as Christians want to do the will of the Father and want to walk in alignment with what God wants. But I just think for myself, I just don't spend the time asking him. I don't spend the time pursuing him, seeking him. I want to throw out a couple uh books real quick that have been super helpful to me. If a man wants to think about God and wants his heart and his affection stirred for God and the things of God, read the book The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. That book has had such a profound effect on my heart, stirring my heart and affections, giving me a desire for God that I haven't had before. And then the other book is, one I think I maybe mentioned earlier. I mean, there's a lot of good books on prayer, but just find a good book on prayer and just spend some time reading some books on prayer. I like that one. You know, Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools by Tyler. Can't remember his last name, but that's a really good one. But I think there's just a lot of really good material for us to, you know, study and try to grow our heart's affections for God and for learning how to communicate better with God. We have to learn how to communicate with each other as human beings. You know what I mean? We go to conferences and we spend a lot of money on courses and conferences and trainings and whatever to learn how to more effectively communicate with one another. But how much effort do we put into trying to learn how to communicate with God? You guys went to the Epic
Yeah.
conference. Good for
We
y'all.
did.
Um. So yeah, if we're talking about books, the Alan Wright book, 5 Ways to Pray in the Spirit, was really helpful to me.
I haven't read it yet. I
Like,
picked one up while we were there, but I haven't read it.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we have to be continuously reminded, and it's really frustrating. Like, I want to get it. I want to climb to the top of the mountain, and then I'm good. I'm on a plateau. But it seems like we have to be continually reminded, first of all, that we're not the answer,
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what?
and that there is a way to learn the answer, and it's gonna take doing this, reading a book, getting around other people.
Talking to our cronies.
Yep.
Yeah,
So Kent, when you were talking about climbing up to the top of the mountain, I got this mental image of you climb to the top of the mountain and then you just sit up there like the guru and everybody comes to you for the answers. But then shortly there you said we had to understand we're not the answer. So but
yeah,
that is what we want.
yeah.
We want to be the one
That's
that's
right.
got it figured out. We want people to think we
Yep.
got it figured out. Man, we're a prideful there's something about us that's just prideful.
Mm-hmm.
That wants that. We wanna look like we got it together. That's messed up.
It's all right. That's kind of why Jesus came, I think,
Yep.
Yep.
because we're
Solution
kind of
is a
messed up.
person,
Yeah.
and it's
I
not us.
Yeah.
I don't think you can truly be thankful for what Jesus has done until you realize who you are.
Yeah.
and how
Realize
messed
just how messed up you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
just like what I said there, you start getting a glimpse of really how, I mean, when you really see the pride of your heart and how, like, I do want people to look at me and think I got it together, and I don't.
Well, I'll tell you, Frank, I think you do, man. I look at you and I think you got it
Oh,
together.
shoot.
So you got one guy fooled at least.
Well, I don't. That's the whole thing. Then you look at yourself realistically and you're like, "Man, I'm a messed up individual." But yeah, that's like you said, Kent, that's why Jesus came,
Mhm. Yeah.
to deliver us from all that. I
Amen.
think
Man,
Good
I'm
stuff.
glad.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
gentlemen,
I need
we're
to
gonna wrap it
I
up.
need to go home and get something to eat.
That's
All
right.
right.
Well, I need to go. My boat's soaking in the water. I might like to get out and see the sunset on it here. So I
I
might
heard
ride out
that.
there and
I wish I
see
lived
what's
right
up.
down the street from you, Alex.
Man, if
That
you did, I'd tell you to bring me a cigar and we'd go out there and,
Yes, we
you
would.
know,
Yep.
enjoy the
Chill out for a
sunset.
minute.
Yeah, it'd be
I'm
awesome.
just glad we made it
But
through this
anyway,
podcast. I've been fighting with this sore throat, and I didn't know if I was gonna be able to talk, but we made it through.
you did good. Wouldn't even know Frank
Yeah.
had us fooled, man.
Yeah.
So,
All
guys, I
right.
appreciate you. Love y'all, and hope y'all have a good rest of
Y'all
the
have a
week.
good night.
Good talking to y'all
Yep.
this evening.
Good
Yeah,
talking to
see
you.
y'all.
Have a good one.
Offense to grace, how sweet the sound. The blood alone redeems. It frees the slaves and calls them sons. Fulfills the law's demands. Oh, yeah. Offense to grace. How sweet the sound that tore the veil away. It shatters all the old constraints, reveals a brand new day. I once believed I had to earn to keep you satisfied, but grace declared the work was done, the blood alone applied. Offense to grace, how sweet the sound. The blood alone redeems. It frees the slaves and calls them sons. Fulfills the law's demands. Oh, yeah. Offense to grace will wreck your world. Relentless and untamed. It settles all the old demands. Leaves no debt to pay. From tables flipped in temple courts to the Pharisees' dismay, this grace offends self-assured and shakes the stronghold's core. Offense to grace, how sweet the sound. The blood alone redeems. It frees the slaves and calls them sons. Fulfills the law's demands. Oh, yeah. From those who judge with stones in hand, to sinners brought to feast. Ah, this grace offends self-righteous pride, but sets the captive free. It's grace that breaks religion's chains, forgives the penitent. It lifts the broken from the dust, exalts the